Hello everyone. Today I will recap you a movie titled Split. So make some tea and we'll start. The film begins with a birthday party for a girl named Claire. Her classmate Casey is sitting brooding and not having fun with the others. Casey is the main character of the film. Claire discusses with her parents that she invited her in vain, but still comes to the conclusion that it is better than not inviting only her. We find out that Casey is often left after school and that she attacks teachers. Casey says her uncle won't be able to pick her up, so she'll take the bus. To which Claire's father replies that he will take her himself. Three girls, Claire, Casey and Marcia, they get into Claire's father's car. A man approaches her father, and her father asks him if he needs help. Casey looks in the rearview mirror and sees food containers that have fallen to the ground. An unknown short-haired man with glasses gets into the car. One of the girls turns to him and says it's not his car. In response, he sprays a can of sleeping gas into the faces of two girls. Casey tries to open the door noiselessly, but as soon as she opens it, there is a characteristic click, and the man does the same procedure with her as with other girls. Casey wakes up in a room with two other girls. They look at her in fright. The windowless room has two beds, access to the bathroom and a locked door. The kidnapper enters the room. He points to Marcia and says, "Let's start with you, you have nothing to be afraid of." Then he starts dragging her into another room. The girl resists, and for a second she manages to escape and run up to Casey. She advises her to pee on herself. The man drags her into another room and closes the door. After a couple of seconds, the man returns the girl to the room, and he is clearly very annoyed. We see that the girl peed herself the way Casey advised her. Another girl tries to calm herself and others by repeating, "It's okay, we're alive." Casey is immersed in memories. She's having dinner with her father and uncle. Uncle tells a story from hunting, greatly embellishing the size of the moose. Casey's father says he had hunting fever. Casey's uncle calls her father a liar, but in general their conversation looks friendly. Our time. We see an elderly woman watching a news report about 3 abducted girls. A certain Barry S. writes to her asking for help. Meanwhile, Claire tries to break down the door, to which Marcia says that there is no point in breaking down the door, since there is another one behind it. The girl panics and offers to attack the man the next time he enters. Casey says they have no chance of dealing with him. Claire panics, and on this basis, she and Casey have a small quarrel. Casey is lost in memories again. She remembers how her father taught her to shoot. He also talks about the fact that female animals are smarter than males, just like humans. Females are looking for shelter and are always thinking about how to stay alive, but males always walk alone and get stupid during the mating season. Casey says they have to come up with a better plan and figure out what the kidnapper wants. We see how the kidnapper communicates with this elderly woman. At the same time, he is dressed completely differently and behaves differently. He walks around the room, touching and correcting things. The woman asks if he has lost anything. Barry talks about himself in the plural and asks what will happen when Miss Fletcher leaves. Who will look after them and communicate with them, because many do not believe that they exist at all. Miss Fletcher says her colleague will look after them if anything happens. She says she's going to have a lecture in Paris soon. The woman suspiciously asks if Barry wants to pick up his sketches, because he never leaves them. The girls look through the keyhole and see a woman in another room. She whispers to the man and says that he has to confess everything. She also mentions that this cannot be done, otherwise, dinner will get cold. The girls start asking for help, and the kidnapper in women's clothes enters the room and behaves differently from before. He speaks about himself on behalf of a woman and informs the girls that he will talk to him and he will listen to her. She also says that Dennis is unwell and she reminded him why these girls are here. We see Dr. Fletcher walking with her colleague. We learn that she will be an expert in the group on affective disorders. Although Miss Karen herself is convinced that these are not affective disorders. She says these people believe in the images they create for themselves. The doctor is dealing with dissociative identity disorder, and it becomes clear that the kidnapper is suffering from it. The girls are at a loss. They do not understand why the kidnapper is talking to himself. Dennis, the man who kidnapped them, enters the room and asks them to keep order, brings cleaning products. Dennis says that Patricia reminded him that he brought them here for a reason, that this is a sacred dinner, and promises not to touch them again. Casey wakes up because Claire called her. When she wakes up, she sees the kidnapper sitting in the doorway. This time the girls get acquainted with a new personality, Hedwig. Hedwig says that he will come here soon. The girls ask who's coming. Hedwig replies that someone very angry is coming and that they definitely won't like him. The girls try to find out who is coming, but Hedwig replies that he cannot be told. But he reports that this someone has done terrible things to people, and says that the girls will also feel bad. One girl asks, "Are we his dinner?" to which Hedwig throws up his hands, expressing ignorance. Hedwig says that he is 9 years old. Casey understands that Hedwig is one of the abductor's personalities, and that he does not know what other personalities have plans. Casey asks Hedwig to help them, but Hedwig says he can't do it. Hedwig also informs that he stole the light from Dennis and that it is impossible to take him away for a long time, otherwise he will find out and punish him. Casey forces Hedwig to approach her to say something in his ear. She says he will come for him. Hedwig is scared. Casey uses this and asks Hedwig to help them get out. Hedwig refuses them and leaves. The girls notice that he was talking about how they made the house safe. The girls start tapping the drywall and discover ventilation. Claire starts breaking the drywall with her shoes to get to the ventilation. At this time Hedwig returns and asks to be let in. He starts banging on the door, and the girls hold her back. Claire opens the ventilation and tries to climb into it. At this time Dennis comes out and bursts into their room, but Claire has already managed to climb into the ventilation. She climbs out of the ventilation into a long room with water pipes and starts running, but Dennis is already chasing her. She's hiding in the locker. Claire comes out, and Dennis forces Claire to take off her sweatshirt, justifying it by saying that it is torn and dirty. Claire was locked in another room and the girls were told they wouldn't see her again. Dennis also forces the girls to partially undress, referring to the fact that the clothes are dirty. Miss Fletcher holds a conference where she talks about the huge differences between different states of the ego, up to physical differences or the presence of one of the personalities of a disease that others do not have. Dennis comes to Miss Fletcher pretending to be Barry. She suspected something was wrong and tried to find out who was actually talking to her. She assumes that it is Dennis, because of the signs of OCD that she discovered at the last appointment, and based on the description of all the personalities that Barry gave her. Dennis continues to insist that he is Barry, and eats candy to prove it. After that, he leaves. After the session, Miss Fletcher decides to check the CCTV footage. After leaving the building, Dennis deliberately walked through the garbage, and we know that The woman watches the recording and decides that this is a show, because any normal person would have bypassed the garbage. Marcia tries to calm herself and Casey down. She says they need to find a window or a door. Casey wakes up because Patricia brought them dinner. She invites them to dinner and takes them to another room. Casey asks if Claire can eat with them, to which Patricia replies that it's impossible. Patricia turns away to make a sandwich. Marcia gestures to Casey for help. Casey tries to dissuade her, but she quietly gets up, takes the chair she was sitting on, and hits Patricia on the back with all her might, after which she tries to run away. Patricia, threatening with a knife, tells Casey to return to the room and goes after Marcia. Marcia runs into a locked door, and Patricia catches up with her. Patricia puts a knife to Marcia's stomach and says she didn't have a chance. Dennis tells Casey that Marcia will now also live in a separate room, says that an animal will come for them, and forces her to take off her shirt. Casey wakes up and Hedwig hugs her from behind. Casey apologizes for lying to him. Hedwig talks about the structure of their consciousness. He says that Barry used to have the power and decide which of the 23 personalities in Kevin's mind, the antagonist's real name. He says that Patricia and Dennis wholeheartedly believe in the beast and its power, but Hedwig himself has not seen it. Hedwig asks Casey to kiss him, and she agrees. Hedwig says that he has a radio in his room by the window and that he likes to dance, and Casey invites him to dance together in his room. Hedwig thinks that Casey wants to deceive him, but she manages to convince him by pressing pity. She says she often misbehaves at school in order to stay after school and be able to be alone. Hedwig says he will pick her up when Dennis finishes his morning training camp. Dennis is talking to the doctor. Barry asked for help again at night, and now she is sure that something is wrong. She reveals Dennis, but does not assume that he is doing something bad. The doctor also talks about the supposed abilities of the beast, which Barry told her about, such as the ability to climb on almost vertical surfaces, the presence of thick skin, comparable in strength to the skin of a rhinoceros, as well as superhuman strength. Hedwig calls Casey to follow him and takes her to his room. Casey sees that the window Hedwig was talking about is just a drawing on the wall. Hedwig sees that Casey is upset about this and realizes that she wanted to escape. Casey asks for help. Hedwig shows Casey a walkie-talkie, and Casey tries to ask for help, but they don't believe her. At this time, Patricia appears, and Casey's walkie-talkie is taken away. Patricia returns Casey to the room. Casey finds a nail and hides it in her sleeve. A little later, Dennis tells Casey about the beast. He says that the beast is an intelligent being representing the highest form of evolution. The beast believes that the era of humans is over. Casey thinks back to her childhood. She is walking in the forest, and her uncle offers her to play animals. He is naked and asks Casey to undress, saying that this is such a game. A little later we see Casey pointing a loaded gun at her uncle, but she doesn't dare to shoot and he takes the gun away. At this time, Dr. Fletcher receives a lot of messages from Barry with the text, "We need you." She comes to where Kevin lives and asks Dennis to let her in. Dennis says that Kevin was punished very severely, and then Dennis came out into the world to maintain perfect cleanliness so that his mother would have no reason to be punished. Dennis says that he really met the beast. He is tall, very muscular, and his fingers are twice as long as human ones. The doctor asks about the continuation of this story. From Barry's stories she knows that the beast must eat vicious virgins, and she asks Dennis what this means. She also asks who Dennis was going to meet, to which he replies, with him. The doctor asked to go to the toilet and found Claire locked in the room. The girls make a fuss, and Dennis applies soporific gas to the doctor. Dennis goes to meet the beast. At this time, the girls are trying to get out of the locked room. Casey manages to open the lock with a nail, but there is another door that she cannot open. Marcia tries to open the latch with a curved wire hanger. Casey finds a computer without internet access. It has videos recorded from each of the personalities. At the same time, an animal comes out of an empty subway car and runs very quickly to the house. Dr. Fletcher barely regains consciousness and, falling asleep, writes something on a piece of paper. At this moment, the beast returns. The beast squeezes her from behind. She tries to stab him with a knife, but the knife just breaks. The beast breaks her spine. Casey finds the key in the room and opens the door. There is a screeching sound in the corridor. She enters Marcia's room and sees her lifeless body with a gutted stomach. In Claire's room, she sees a beast that eats her. She locks the door and runs away. In the next room, she finds the corpse of Dr. Fletcher and tries to open the door with the help of the keychain she found. At this time, the beast easily breaks down the closed door. Casey finds a note with the text, "Say his name. Kevin Wendell Crumb." Casey turns around and sees the beast climbing the wall. She calls his name, after which he weakens and goes into another room. We dive into Kevin's memories. He hides under the bed, and his mother yells at him for making a mess. Kevin wakes up and says he doesn't remember anything. He tells Casey that he bought a gun and ammunition. After a few personal changes, Hedwig comes out and gives the light to Patricia. The beast comes out again. Casey manages to open the door and she runs to the locker, which has cartridges for the gun. She takes them and tries to load the gun on the run. An animal attacks her out of the darkness and bites her calf. She continues to limp and run away, trying to call for help. At the same time, we are shown Casey's memories of her father's death, and we learn that after his death, she was taken into custody by her pedophile uncle. The beast crawls through the pipes, breaking light bulbs. It's dark in the hallway, and Casey can't see where to shoot. Casey closes himself in the cage and, after several misses, loads the last 2 cartridges. The beast runs straight to the box and she hits it twice, but it remains alive and fully functional. Along the way, he shouts that people who did not know pain are unworthy of life. He opens the bars of the cage and sees a lot of scars on Casey's body. He says that she is not like the others at all and her heart is pure. After that, the beast leaves, leaving Casey locked in a cage. After a while, a security guard discovers her and calls the police. Casey is saved. It turns out that all this time she was in an abandoned part of the basement of the zoo. Casey is being picked up by her uncle and she doesn't want to get out of the car. We see Dennis licking his wounds. Dennis declares in front of the mirror that everyone will have to believe that they exist. In the final scene, we see David Dunn, the hero of the movie Unbreakable, who sees a message that Kevin, nicknamed the Horde, is wanted by the police.